A pinnacle being from Hunter x Hunter, you might even say a perfect creature, versus the undisputed chess genius, the GOAT of chess, Magnus Carlsen. This is a battle of a godlike alien intellect versus human mastery. And so, could Meruem defeat Magnus Carlsen at chess? In order to better understand how exactly this chess clash would go, first we would need to dissect our clients here, starting with the god of chess, Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player to ever step foot on this planet. He is widely considered to be the greatest, and the stats back it up. First of all, he is a chess natural. At only 13 years old, Magnus already became a grandmaster. And at that same year, he proceeds to face the greatest chess player of that time, Garry Kasparov, and he actually draws with him. Then, he went on a streak of absolute domination. Magnus held the world champion title for 10 straight years, winning 5 world championships back to back, until he voluntarily stepped away in 2023. He also claimed 8 blitz and 5 rapid world titles, stretching his domination across all forms of chess. Or how about this feat? One day Magnus just woke up and felt like never losing again, as he went on an insane streak of 125 official games without a single loss, meaning that he went for over 2 years never losing a single game. But I think the most impressive feat is 2882. That is the highest registered ELO ever achieved in chess history. This number is so huge that I think that no chess player would be able to top that, at least in the observable future. This guy is the literal strongest, the I'd win of chess world. Magnus Carlsen is notoriously known for his bullshit. And I don't mean that he talks bullshit, I mean his game. He's known for flipping dead loss positions 180, completely turning the tide of a game. Hikaru Nakamura, probably the second best player in the world, straight up lost his shit when Magnus started pulling that off.
When someone's able to save games, it really starts to affect you because you don't know what to do. And the more and more times that happens, it starts adding up and it just affects you in a way that it's very, very hard to overcome.
Magnus has an insane ability to read both the board and the psyche of his opponents. Like, there was a moment where he claimed that AI has incorrectly calculated a certain chess position to be a draw position. And then he proceeded to beat Caruana from that exact position, proving his point. In 2012 in Mexico, he defeats 5 2200 rated players simultaneously. 2200 MMR means that they are better than 99% of all chess players. Oh, did I also forget to mention that he played 5 of them not only simultaneously, but also blindfolded. Whichever way you look at it, this guy is a talent. But now, it's time to talk about the other contestant for this chess match, a king of Chimera Ants, Meruem. He is a pinnacle of power and strength in Hunter x Hunter. Meruem comes from a humanoid race of Chimera Ants, known to be surpassing humans in pretty much every single category. It is also important to note that their race of Chimera Ants is wired differently from our human society. In the human society, every single person is an individual, living his own life. But for Chimera Ants, it's different. They all live in order to give birth to the ultimate being that would then become a light that leads their entire race with his enlightened might and power, their king. And yeah, that king is Meruem. So, as you might expect from an ultimate being, he has every single possible stat maxed out. And I can't emphasize enough on to what extent. To a guy like him, facing the elite trained human non-combatant is just like for us to face a regular ant. Not even worthy to be a nuisance. Or here's another. The strongest human ever, Isaac Netro, a being so powerful that people think he is enlightened, or just straight up insane. The absolute pinnacle of non-combat that is possible to ever achieve for a human being, basically. But not even Netro himself could have posed an even slightest bit of threat to Meruem. And I mean in a physical battle sense, as you can always go ballistic with the kamikaze nuke bombs, don't get me wrong on that one. But yeah, let's not get too off track. We are here to talk about chess and the mental aspect of Meruem. When I say that Meruem has every single possible stat maxed out, I of course also mean his intelligence. After Meruem and his royal guards capture the Isgard, he proceeds on a streak of playing a numerous amount of board games versus the best players they could have found there. We've seen him play and defeat national champions of chess, shogi and go. as he portrays an impossible level of learning speed, being able to defeat a shogi champion in just about 20 games and a Go champion in only 10 games. And the reason why he defeats a Go player 2 times quicker is because Meruem has learned something that he wouldn't think is the cornerstone of any competitive game: disrupting the enemy's rhythm. So for the Ant King to be able to match and defeat players at the level of national champions in just mere hours shows first of all the insane superhuman capacity of his brain to contain vast amounts of information and a great ability to quickly adapt, meaning the ability to quickly point out the important information, the important aspects for the victory, and disregard the noise information. I also want to note that the fact that he mastered Go in just 10 games, just absolutely insane, since this board game is known to be the hardest game to master, with Go having a game tree complexity far bigger than of chess, 10 to the power of 765, compared to chess's 10 to the power of 120. Though it is also fair to say that these players that he faced were not the literal best of the best, if you take into consideration that this whole thing takes place in the Isgorchu, which resembles and is kinda like Togashi's take on North Korea, which means that the country is living under a strong dictatorship, a place where it is quite difficult to develop a thriving gaming scene due to the poor level of living of the citizens. So I would not say that the amount of skill that is required to become a national champion in the Isgorchu is quite the same as if it become a national champion in the United States or in any other big country. Still, mastering chess in mere hours, mastering shogi in about 20 games, and the most impressive one of mastering Go in just 10 games, that means that the outcome of that battle should be already sealed, right? When I said that the Isgorchu had a poor living condition, which is not fitting for a thriving gaming scene, I kinda lied, because there is one exception. Gungi is a game that comes originally from the Isgorchu. It is basically a much more complex and much more strategic board game than chess. And Meruem has faced and actually has never won in hundreds, if not 1,000 games played against Gungi's world champion, a blind girl named Komugi. You see, in the Hunter x Hunter world there exists this concept of Nen, your living aura. And the awakened Nen users are like superhuman soldiers, being able to do basically anything with their aura, getting super strength, super senses and magical abilities from that. But in this video we don't care about those. What we care about is that the exceptionally talented non-Nen users can actually access aura just through their sheer skill and talent in their chosen profession. We can see that happening with some of the artists, with Ben, the Ben's Knife Craftsman, and with Komugi respectively, of course. You see where I'm leading towards here. If Meruem was to challenge Magnus, it is definitely going to be just like that. He would notice his chess mastery, just as when he noticed the power of both Netero and Komugi during their encounters. Now, I want to point one thing straight away. Magnus' chess battle with Meruem is not going to be like his battle with Komugi. First of all, since chess is much less complex game than the game of Gungi. Gungi is a game that is designed in such a way where a stronger opponent will just never lose to a weaker one. It is not like chess, where even the best ones can sometimes blunder stupidly. There is even a saying that if a Gungi master loses even once in his life, then he becomes human again. Or in Komugi's case, he becomes trash. Coming from an extremely poor family of 12 people, being a handicapped small blind girl, she has unknowingly created a Nen contract with herself that if she ever loses a game of Gungi, even at least once, then she will forfeit her life. So her absolute passion, talent and skill in Gungi got multiplied by that contract, making her basically unbeatable in that game. The reason why I'm telling you all that is to establish that Komugi is a hacks and overpowered Gungi master, that even though subconsciously, but she's basically using magical ability and magical contract to never lose at that game. Hence why it would be inappropriate to be taking her as a scaling tool against Magnus Carlsen. Well, at least not with her broken ability. And also we were talking about Meruem playing board games, so I just could not mention Komugi. You know, I just had to. But Meruem and Magnus would definitely have a ton of fun playing each other. Come to think about it, Meruem and Magnus's playstyle is actually very similar. Meruem's favorite strategy is disrupting the enemy's rhythm, as I've said before. He purposefully focuses on that aspect, and fair enough, it's one of the best tactics that you could use. If you understand how your opponent moves, you can then create obstacles and kick him out of the comfort zone. And what do you know, Magnus is just like that. during some chess tournament in Moscow in 2010. As a young prodigy climbing the ranks, he jumped at the chance to play friendly matches against a tough rival, Chimera Nakamura. That evening they spent 6 hours playing around 40 games of chess against each other. In these matches, Magnus Carlsen has analyzed and dissected his opponent's playstyle completely. By the end of that marathon, two things became crystal clear. First is that Hikaru has lost all of his confidence and hope in facing Magnus. And second is that night Magnus Carlsen became unstoppable. Before that day, Magnus and Hikaru were neck and neck in tournaments, with Hikaru having quite decent chances of beating Magnus. After that day, Magnus has never lost to Hikaru for 6 straight years. Doesn't it remind you of anything? It's literally the exact same shit that Meruem does to his opponents. And then, the ability to quickly navigate with a level head, sacrifice the needed pieces for a greater goal, the ability to maneuver and surprise people in the late games. I know that I am stretching it, like any great player would also do all these same things. But still, I just cannot but help seeing only similarities in their approach to games. However, what exactly would happen if they were to face each other? There are two ways to approach this question. First is if Meruem has never played chess or any other strategic games before. And second, if Meruem already has an experience. Let's say that Meruem has never played chess before and starts from scratch. Then Magnus would have an experience advantage. And I think that it would not be a surprise to say that he would clean all of the first games they'd play. But I am not going to lie, and I will tell you straight away that I am certain that eventually Meruem would come out on top. Magnus Carlsen does not have nan abilities like Komugi does, which are making her unbeatable. So eventually, simply because his brain capacity far exceeds that of any human, Meruem would win. We know that Meruem's adapting skills are one of the greatest, like his encounter with Netro. He reduces Old Man's ability just right away, able to sense the tiniest imperfections in Netro's tempo, and adapt and break his fighting style. Against Komugi, he never beats her, but he adapts so much that he forces her to awaken Nen Gungi powers, plus add his brain's mental capacity, able to contain an impossibly vast amounts of information, like learning a decades of human experiences from just reading a rulebook. Honestly, the question should be not the could Meruem defeat Magnus, but how long would it take for him to overcome Magnus Carlsen? Well, to answer that question, first I'll say that Magnus should be scaling way higher than these bum-ass champions. And from my standpoint, he should probably scale to a pre-awakened Komugi, or in other words, Komugi without her Nen ability. Because if you think about it, Magnus and Komugi are actually kind of pretty close in their feat list. I'm not saying that Magnus is close to her in mastery in the respective game. Komugi is a hex character, but their feats can be comparable as both are the best at their fields. The only difference is that Komugi has this overpowered Nen ability for winning at Gungi. So my take is that up until the point where Komugi awakens, I think that Meruem versus Magnus would probably go in just the same way as it went with her, with Magnus Carlsen stomping Meruem, while the Ant King learns and adapts to his style. And since Komugi's awakening took place on their second or third day of playing, then it's probably that's how much Magnus has before Meruem takes over and demolishes Carlsen's entire playstyle. Though there's also a game complexity factor of chess being much less complex than Gungi. So realistically, Magnus' defeat would happen even quicker than Komugi's awakening. If I were to just guess, I would say that Magnus' defeat would happen in the span of the first 24 hours playing Meruem. And that all if we take Meruem without a prior strategic games experience. If we take Meruem after he has learned all these games and strategies, let's say we take his version from a palace invasion. Well, this Meruem would destroy Magnus in the span of hours. He already knows chess rules, and there will be no more experience gap between these two players. All there's left for Meruem to conquer is just mastery and refinement. I may say that this scenario resembles more of an encounter with Netro. Meruem would surely defeat the human player, but I would say that he would sense his mastery over chess and still give him respect. Yeah, it is a pretty unfair matchup, unless Magnus isn't capable of unlocking some sort of chess-winning Nen ability. In that case, who knows who would win, but until then, Meruem stomps. Thank you so much for watching, and consider subscribing.